All right. All right, we're live.
Hello,
How is
we're
everything
live.
going out there in Facebook land? I believe it's the afternoon. Yes, it's the afternoon. I've got Tiffani Brennan with me today, certified certified facilitator. You also relationships done different facilitator.
Yes,
Is that right? And
correct.
there was a name, being you.
Being you, yeah. And also on the path to being a right recovery certified facilitator as well.
Awesome. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so you've been doing, how long have you been doing Access?
Kind of forever. It must be, well, since early 2000s. So however long that is. You do the maths.
Wow. So you've been around a while. Do you remember? I mean, must seem like centuries ago now.
It does. It does.
Do you remember how you found Access? How did you come across Access?
Yeah, absolutely. I was working at the time for, you probably know them yourself, the Mind, Body, Spirit festivals that they have at Darling Harbour. So I was part of a very small team of people who were creating those festivals and putting them on all around Australia. And Access Consciousness were one of my exhibitors, and that's how I came across Access.
Wow. So you hadn't heard of anything before that? So it was sort of completely...
No, I hadn't. And it was interesting because I'd been working there at the time around 3 or 4 years. And the festival had just been sort of recently taken over by a big corporate company. And at the time, that company also acquired a bunch of different businesses within the trade show industry. So there were a couple of businesses that were brought together that were like head-to-head competitors in the industry before they were then part of the same company. So there was a lot going on. And, at that time, I also started to become very aware of people who were part of the festival as, exhibitors who... it was really starting to be clear to me who was doing it for just for money, and those who were doing it for what they were really trying to get out there, and including money in that as well. But and I had this conversation with this guy who called up about the possibility of having a speaker come out from America, who was Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness. And I had this conversation with this guy on the phone, and within a couple of minutes, I was like, this, whatever he's talking about, there was something very genuine and real in the way that he was describing what he was interested to bring to the festivals. Yeah. So that was the first little spark. I was like, ooh, what is this?
So you saw them at the festival, but did you then get your bars run then, or was it at the...
I did.
Yeah.
I did get my bars run. It was funny because I was doing my thing and going around to all of my exhibitors at the festival and checking in and learning a little bit about, what they're doing. And, because leading up to a festival, you have conversations with them on the phone all the time, and you kind of have that, but then you get to have that real experience of checking out what they're doing. And I loved that part of it. That was a huge part of what I loved about being a part of the Mind, Body, Spirit festivals. And so I went up to them, and Dr. Dane here was on the stand, who's the co-creator of Access Consciousness, and Gary Douglas, and a couple other people, another facilitator who doesn't do Access, who's not really part of Access anymore. And Dane and this other guy were kind of like fighting over who was going to run my bars. So I was kind of like, okay, well, this is interesting. And so Dane won, and wow. I sat down, and, he started to touch my head. And all the while I was asking questions about what he was doing. And every question that I asked, he didn't answer. Like he would kind of, and you laugh now, Brendan, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. But every question I was asking, he would kind of ask me another question. And so I was sitting there, and I started to become quite kind of uncomfortable with what he was doing. I was like, what is he doing? And he's not answering my questions. And all the while my walkie-talkie's on my hip. And I just found an excuse. I was like, okay, I'm really busy. I can't stay here. And I took my hand from out of his head like this and ran away.
Wow.
Yeah. And within about, I would say 20 minutes or something, and I didn't make this connection at the time, but within about 20 minutes, my whole world started falling apart, basically, which sounds really bad, but it was it was falling apart for the better. Yeah.
Cool. So there was that fairly instant you recognized the power of access bars pretty quickly.
Yeah, but not at the time. It wasn't till maybe even 6 months later that I don't know the timing. I'm terrible with time. Maybe like a few weeks, a few months, whatever later, that I was like, oh my God, it was the bars that created all of the lies and all of the places where I was trying to create my life from a reality that didn't work for me. I was working in a corporate situation. I'd been very kind of successful in what I'd done up until this point, but I felt like, and this sounds really dramatic, but in a way I felt like I was dying. I felt like I knew that the path that I was on, and many different paths I was on in my life, was not contributing to what I really wanted to create. And having Dane run my bars that day started to melt all of the lies and the walls that I was creating as real for me that weren't.
It's interesting you said that you kind of stopped halfway through or something, because it's like you lost a bit of control from you lost control of the situation.
I totally did.
If you want to control your stuff, you don't get your bars running.
Exactly. If you want your life to change, don't get your bars run.
And I think for people doing access or having Dane run your bars is like a dream come true. It's so funny now looking back at that, and it's really funny because at the time too, I was doing the real like hippie thing, and a little bit kind of anti-establishment, and wearing very crazy clothes and having like purple hair and, wearing spiked collars and all this kind of crazy stuff to I guess somewhere try and prove how different I was, rather than really acknowledging and realizing how different I was. And I remember when Dane was standing behind me, I was thinking, I was judging him. I was like, who is this sleazy dude with these shiny shoes on, had like a nice suit and shiny shoes. And at that time I had judgments of people that dress like that. It's so funny, all the places where I was just like, no, I'm out of here. So you had
but it worked anyway.
And then from there, what was the path from that point on? Like, you had your bars run, and then what happened in your life? You said 6 months down the track, you were starting to see your life unravel.
It wasn't 6 months. Now I say that it was much quicker than that. So I found myself upstairs at the big Darling Harbour Exhibition Centre. There's 2 levels within the big kind of exhibition centre, and I'd run upstairs and I was literally bawling. Like my life felt like everything was falling apart. It felt like all those places where I was trying to show the world that everything was okay in my world when it wasn't, just started to break down and melt. And the other facilitator, who was the one I spoke to on the phone originally about Gary coming out here, and he was just there. He was like literally just right there. I was like, whoa, okay. And he started like saying all these weird words and wiggling his hands at me. And I was kind of like, I don't really know what you're doing. But instantaneously, I felt things changing energetically in a very big way. And that also spiked my curiosity big time. But before all of this, I knew Simone Milicis. she was also one of the exhibitors at the festivals, and so she and I knew each other, and she had a business called Good Vibes for You, and I also saw her at the festival, and she'd started working with Access a little bit already at that time. So she was working with Good Vibes and she was working with Access, and I kept bumping into her on that day too. And it was like the whole universe. I was also at a stage in my life where I knew I had to change something. I really knew that the choices I was making, which also included taking a lot of drugs and partying a lot and stuff like that. It was destroying me. And so I just was like, okay, well, I'm ready for a big change and I want to leave my job. And so I started working with Simone and this other facilitator in, promoting him and looking at Gary coming out and all these different things. So, yeah, I was kind of straight in there pretty quick.
Wow. Yeah, wow. And then now look at you, you're a certified facilitator, you work in Access. Amazing. And then you mentioned there's other tools as well. So you've got the bars, and that's seems to be an entry point. It was for me as well. There's other tools as well. How would you explain the other tools of Access?
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because it really is this plethora of a whole bunch of different tools and techniques and, from hands-on body things, which the bars is too. It's this thing where we touch different points on people's heads, and there are other hands-on bodywork techniques, and they're all really designed to invite you to become more aware of the fact that we create everything. Everything that we think, say, feel. The internal conversations that we have with ourselves creates our life and our future. But for most of us, we're first of all, we're not given, a lot of people aren't even aware of that. But then oftentimes we're not given the tools to start to become aware of how we can more consciously create our lives and our future, Yeah. And I think for me, I always knew that. I always knew that we created everything, but I felt like I didn't have access to truly creating my life and my future in a way that was fun for me and enjoyable for me. Yeah. So it's all sorts of things from question. I mean, question's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to figure stuff out and thinking that you had to have the answer, or the answer was outside of you. So if you were doing, if you followed a spiritual practice, or there was always something to follow, and if you do X, Y, Z, then you'll get closer to getting some sort of answer. Whereas the question, that for me, that blew my world apart. If you ask the question, you can gain an awareness that will change something quite possibly instantly, and that for me, that was a game that changed it for me. Like when for example, for me, I was insomniac, and I always just identified with that as a problem, and I spent so much time trying to cure it. But then when I started to ask questions like, is this mine, or what am I perceiving, just a whole bunch of different questions, it then began to unravel. And all of a sudden I realize it wasn't mine. And then, I was just tapping into other people's anxieties. And once I had that awareness, I could, it would come up, and then I keep asking, who does this belong to? And now it's kind of like I don't even identify it as being a problem.
Yeah.
So, it's, for me, that was a big one. I mean, obviously getting your bars run, but then I think that opened up a space to create something different, which led to a question instead of having an answer. So,
sorry, what were you saying?
And for me, that to be in question was never something that I was good at. Even now, so it's easy to come to a conclusion. So to be in question is still, it's a practice for me as well, to continually ask a question instead of conclude something. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So I guess if we could sort of, if someone's watching this and going, well, what's something they could start to play with? What's one question do you think that they could start with?
Yeah, I mean, how does it get any better than this? Is a question that, and it's interesting because when you start to look at this question itself, you'll start to also notice people, whether it's on television or just in a conversation, who might say, oh, well, it can't get any better than this. And that's, like you were just saying, Brennan, that's the conclusion. But they don't even realize what they're doing with that. Whereas, how does it get any better than this is a question that you can use from, when the worst thing that's ever happened to you is going on in your life, right through to when the best thing that you've experienced so far is showing up. And, it's like, if you are willing to ask that question, let's take the example of the worst thing. How many people, when they're going through a shitty situation in their life, are like, that negative self-talk, or that, this is terrible, this is the worst thing that can ever happen to me. It's like, what if every time that you went to say something like that, you stopped and went, okay, so how does it get any better than this? And another one that, another tool, which is a question too that we use a lot, is what else is possible? And it's like, for a lot of us, when something's going on, we see that this is all we have, and again, that's what we're taught. It's like, how many people are empowering us to know that there are infinite possibilities available to you at all times? Because there are, but you've got to be willing to ask for them. And you've got to be willing to know that it's possible. So how does it get any better than this is a great one. And right through to, say you've just had, an amazing win with your business or something. How many people, when that happens, they're like, they've reached something, or they stop because that's like the best. Whereas you go, oh, this is really amazing, and I'm so stoked and so grateful. And what else? Like, how does it get even better than this? And it just can, it really opens up and empowers everything around you to contribute more.
Yeah, it's fun. I've had fun using the tools. I think for me, that's been the big one. Like, whether something's not going your way, then you kind of play with the tools and ask questions. And when something's going well, you ask the question, and it seems to get better as well. So it's just been fun. And then instead of taking something as this is it, you're expanding instead of instead of it being something narrow. Well, how can we expand it more? And it's something that's, again, it's a practice, and it's fun when you start to play with it and you see how things that happen. You don't even small day-to-day things. It doesn't have to be major events. It can just be like whether you're going to find a car park. You're looking at going down the beach and trying to find a car spot on a sunny day, and you go, what else is possible? And then a car park appears. And you go, I'll have more of that, thank you. And so it just makes everyday life fun. So but it doesn't mean that bad stuff doesn't happen, or things that hurdles as well, like, so you can use it in any situation. So
exactly. And like you say, it's not all about fairy dust and rainbows and everything being wonderful all the time. These tools are pragmatic and easy to use, and there's lots of them, so you can pick and choose the ones that work for you, or play with different ones and see how they go. And I love that, Brendan. I actually had a friend who came and did a bars class, which is a class where you learn the hands-on points on the head and how to play with that, which is also very easy, very simple. Anyone can learn it. Anyone can do it. Even my 5-year-old runs my bars, and he's really good at it.
I bet he is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're usually pretty short sessions, but But, a friend of mine had come to this bars class and, we were back at her house and she was trying to open this jam jar and she couldn't. And she was like, she was like, okay, how's it getting any better than this? And it opened straight away. So, it's like, wow.
Yeah, it's funny. We went camping. Sorry, this is a real. People probably think this is a bit of a stretch, but I was using it with lighting a fire, and the fire wasn't, campfire, and I was going, how does it get any better than this? And the fire was reacting.
Huh.
You must be. And we were with some other people. No, it was really, how does it get any better? And it would just start to ignite. So you'll be surprised how the application of these, it's out your imagination or even like beyond that, because, just seeing where it will work, because, we're all connected, everything's connected. You don't know until you experiment with these things. So I would just talk to the fire and go, how does it get any better than this? And the fire would start to,
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. And
that's great.
Yeah,
that's really
people
great.
around me were like just thinking, who is this idiot talking to the fire?
But the other thing I noticed with you, Brennan, is that there's a playfulness that you have with using the tools, and that creates more too. It's like you're like, oh, let's just see what happens, and it's not about trying to prove something right or trying to prove something wrong or trying to prove something does work or doesn't work. It's just like, oh, how much fun can I have with this? Mm-hmm. And then, things respond.
Yeah, this is not for my mind, these conversations aren't about proving anything, because I don't really care if people use the tools or not, but it's kind of like a message to someone like myself who was, I was always looking for something beyond, because I was always I was a good problem solver. So, always digging up a problem and looking at it and going, yeah, I can solve that. But then when I found Access, there was about possibilities. So, and then what can I create? What can I do now? What's next? What's next? Instead of looking at the past and going, oh, all this stuff happened to me. I need to fix all these things, and then I can look to the future. So when I found Access, and I know there's people out there like myself where they're constantly looking to fix things. If I fix this, then I can look forward. So for me, when I came across these tools, I realized that I didn't have to fix anything. And now it's that, as you said, it's that playful element that you can play with these things and you can create things. So I'm just having fun doing these conversations, and maybe someone else will find it interesting and want to explore the tools. Do you have any classes? What's on the horizons for you at the moment?
Oh, well, we have the big global foundation class and this big fiesta of possibilities, a bunch of classes that are happening over in Mexico. So I'm quite involved with having all that come together. I'm one of the live translation coordinators. So I deal with all the translators and making sure that classes are translated into, we have up to 21 languages that we translate classes with Gary Douglas and Dane Here and Simone Milasas and Brendan Watt into. So I've got that coming up, and I'm looking to get some Relationship Done Different and Being You classes on my calendar happening sort of probably in May, June. And lots of little creations. I've got another little project with a friend of mine, Viv Adcock, called the Ladies Lounge, which is we've got a Facebook group and we do some lives in there. We've got one of our friends and a guest coming on tomorrow, Sylvia Puentes, and we're just talking about she loves herself. Which is,
you can't love yourself. You can't
exactly.
Do that. No.
Exactly. Not allowed.
It's like so Aussie, right? Oh, he's a bit up himself.
She loves herself.
Oh, he loves himself, mate.
Oh, that's right. That's a bad thing. I'm not supposed to do that. So we're looking forward to having a fun conversation tomorrow in the Ladies Lounge Facebook group about that as well. Yeah. What about you? What have you got coming up?
I've just created my first intro class. So.
Yay.
And that's been interesting, just creating the class. It's called Can You Laugh Yourself into Change? Can you laugh your way into change? So it's like using the getting into question and looking at change and how we define change, and by defining change you can limit it, and having the when you're trying to have the answer of what change you're looking for, you miss the possibilities. And so
so much good stuff and so much fun to be had. Hey, and I think I was looking at just how much the Matrix movies.
Mm-hmm.
Just how much, like, before that day that I had my bars run, just how much I was like stuck in the Matrix, knowing there was something else possible, but not knowing how to get out of, a lot of these kind of rat races or habits or things that I would find myself in. And I think that's been one of the most amazing things for me, is unlocking things in a way that's easy and fun. And just, my life just keeps getting greater and greater and more fun and more enjoyable and easier to create the kind of successes that I know is available and possible with life and living. Yeah, it's really cool. I'm very grateful that I came across Access all those years ago. And, that we get to play with, people like you and have these great conversations, and it's a real gift.
Yeah, that whole expansion that you're talking about. And when you think that 10 months ago, I thought my life was, as you were saying, there's this narrow now, just there's this expansion that's available. And, what else is possible with that? So
totally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tiffani, for joining me today.
Thank you.
And enjoy on Happy Earth Day, by the way.
Happy Earth Day. It is Earth Day. Yeah, wonderful. Yes. Happy Earth Day. Yeah, wow, what a beautiful, amazing planet we get to live on as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chat again soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.